where should I be looking?
Just wherever. This camera right here is probably best. See, there's a little lag when you do stuff.
Yeah, I noticed that a little earlier.
Yeah, try not to look at that, and then we're good. You're a pro. You've done this before. Hey, welcome to the Fireside Tattoo Podcast, the official podcast of the Fireside Tattoo Network. I like the way that we got. So I don't know if you remember the last time we used these headphones. You could only hear in one side, like mono. For the first year or so we had these.
Yeah.
It turns out it's the cable that connects it to our headphones. We had a mono cable hooked up and didn't know it. It's like, shit. So this is the first time I've used them this weekend with stereo sound. I'm like,
nice.
Oh, man, it's so much better.
It was like, what, a $10 fix?
Yeah.
Over the last, like, 6
however many years we've been using these? Absolutely. No excuse for it. I am Jake. This is Oscar Zornosa.
Hey.
If you've been following us for a while, you've seen Oscar a few times. And if you hear some background noise, we're being serenaded by a saxophone. He's on his way over here right now. So we had talked about so we're here at Space City still, and this is – you've been here most every year, haven't you?
Yeah, every year.
Every year?
Yeah.
Why just because Space City brought us here, and I've been trying to highlight something that something about the show that kind of sets it apart from other shows that you do. So why do you come here every year? I know it's close to Atlanta.
Yeah. I mean, proximity definitely makes a big difference for me. But I don't know. There's anybody who's traveled a lot. There's a lot of different types of shows, and this is one where where you can hang out and also still feel like competitive. I guess like it's a good mixture of both because there's enough people here to make you feel like you should work hard, or at least hard enough. But at the same time, it's not as big of a dick measuring contest as it can be. And it's organized, like it's always like well put together, especially for one person pretty much putting the whole show together.
Right.
And I like the fact that it's like smaller. So like, most conventions that are, 200 plus artists, it just like each person's impact doesn't impact you as much. And, it's nice to actually like, because we all forget everybody's names anyway.
Yeah.
But I feel like at least at this convention, I get like more of a real personal contact with anybody who I speak with, just because like there's not as many people here. So, you can spend more time with people and it's not as crazy as like Philly or New York or Golden State or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I'm glad. I think the first year, at the end of the first year, we talked to Shaquem, and he was talking about maybe doing it in the bigger room or adding a second room, and I'm glad that hasn't happened.
Yeah. I mean, it's what keeps it special, and like the closeness and, at times, sometimes it might feel a little too cozy, but, I guess it's better to be a little too comfortable than not than not at all.
Yeah. Yeah. So we were talking over the last couple of days. We were talking really specifically about our show. Other tattoo podcasts have come on, and you and I were just talking about the idea of maybe taking deeper dives in some of these shows instead of staying superficial. Not that asking about what people are working on and what their challenges are is all superficial, but it's we've heard most answers at this point.
Right.
So I asked you what you thought was either like an opportunity, an issue, something you've noticed just in the industry as a whole that would be worth talking about. And you mentioned something that I had not thought about, which was all of the kind of GoFundMes and stuff like that we see for tattooers, which is great that exists, but the fact that it's necessary, and obviously very necessary, because we see them constantly for tattooers who have either like they've passed away unexpectedly and it's for their family, or they have had a stroke or get diagnosed with cancer. And these are a lot of them very young people,
right?
And kind of even though this industry it's come a long way, a lot of the it's still not structured in a way where we point people in a direction and say, hey, look, this is how you kind of behave as a subcontractor, which is what you are. This is how you might go about getting some type of health coverage or how to prepare for it. So what are your
Yeah, I mean,
thoughts on it?
I think, as far as, I think the allure for most people, I mean, luckily I got into this real young, and I'm 13 years in now. So, like I came in the days where you still, like, you might order something from a catalog, or, like, Reed Street was the only thing that even you could get any sort of information on. The Icon machine gun books were one of the first things that were actually coming out educational. And I think, more people that came in that time or earlier, where it was just like, attracted to the circus of it all, And I think over the years, it's gotten more and more, mainstream and just, let's just say just more business oriented in general. So I think most of us who got into it then and earlier, we were happy to be pirates, and that's what we wanted. But, now that East India Trading Company has taken over all of the waters now, like, now what do? Do you live and die by the pirate code and, kind of like fade away more or less? Or do you try to adapt to the new world? Like, I think tradition is great. And I think that, like, ritual and customs and all that stuff is amazing, but, like, at a certain point, like, we switched from coal and steam to gas machines because they were more efficient and blah, 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 blah. And I think one of the big things that are overlooked right now, is health insurance, savings, investing. And it's not the fact that you're not a pirate anymore. It's just now you're fighting, 20 times the amount of pirates with less than, I guess it's all relative because, like, 10 years ago, it was like maybe 10% of the population was contemplating getting the tattoo, or probably even less, probably 5% or something.
And now they're saying it's 30%.
Yeah. Like either people thinking about getting one or actually getting one. It's either like it's got to be close to 30 or 40% by now.
Yeah.
So
I think the most recent numbers that I've seen were that 30% of Americans are tattooed.
Right.
Or are tattooed, not just contemplating, but are tattooed,
right.
which is crazy. Yeah, it's come a long way. And the thing is we're very highly paid for the amount of time that we put in. So there's not really a great excuse for it.
No, not at all. I mean, it all depends on what you're doing, but, because, some people definitely should be getting paid more for what they do, and some people are getting paid too much. But, I think at a certain point with, like, it's great to be like, hey, this is why I did this, but, it's like the same thing as getting married. The person you get married to in the beginning generally tends to be a different person after 12 years. Right. So, like, what are you going to do? Like, are you going to divorce tattooing, or are you going to, like, stay together for the kids, or, go on some retreat to re-fall in love with it again, or, it is what it is. And I think I totally understand the want to try to fight against, quote unquote, making it a normal job. But I mean, honestly, these days, like, and it's funny to me because a lot of the people that complain about the changes, they have a very specific style, and that's the only thing that they want to do. So it's like, all right, so you want to have the cake and eat it too? Yeah. Like, so you're going to pass down every, 5 out of 6 tattoos because it's not what you want to do, but you're going to complain that tattooing is changing, right. Like, dude, if you're really that, like, traditional, you should be only doing only walk-ins or whatever all the time, or barely doing appointments, or only appointments on the weekend and walk-ins the rest of the week. So, there's always that double-edged sword. And, me, I'm, like, I want to be comfortable. I don't want to feel like, like so many people that we know, especially over the last couple of years, and we've all seen it, with the GoFundMes for funerals and illnesses and all that. Obviously we're a group that doesn't save money, and we just don't understand that. And I think that's a bigger problem than tattooing. I just think because, a lot of people our age anyway, you have to have a certain amount of money to even afford health insurance or afford savings or investment. But, in general, our generation, is not as good as handling money as our parents' generation was. I mean, dude, my mom, by the time she was, 25, she had 3 kids, a house, and savings,
Right.
you know, with making way less money than I did,
Yeah.
than I do right now,
Yeah.
you know. So I think it's, it goes to a generational problem, but I think tattooers are always like, we don't care about that stuff so much, so it's even less on our mind than like the normal person who doesn't tattoo or is not a musician or,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like we definitely have a worse time handling it, but I think that definitely a generational problem.
Yeah. The thing that I hear a lot, or that's a common excuse, is that I'm self-employed and my employer doesn't offer health insurance, which to me it's a crazy idea. I don't know how we got to a point where employers were expected to pay for health insurance to begin with. I know we talked last night a little bit about the group policies and that it's cheaper,
Right.
but like employers don't pay auto insurance or homeowners insurance, but we just decided that health coverage was something they were going to do. And that's said and done now, so great, employers provide health insurance. But it's still not an excuse if you're a subcontractor. It doesn't mean that it's unattainable for you just because no one else is
Right.
handing it to you or saying, here, jump on my group policy.
Right.
And it may be there are a lot of options probably that people don't know about because they don't prioritize it in their lives.
Yeah.
But health savings accounts that are completely tax deductible, like you can pile as much as you want into a health savings account and not pay taxes on it.
Right.
You know how we're so hell bent on not paying taxes anyways. Like trying to force people to pay cash for an $8,000 tattoo is crazy.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Which we do. Like I was just talking to Dan over here about this earlier today. I'm always amazed at how many really, really high level tattooers are still cash only. They have like $1,200 minimums.
Right.
So
For sure. I mean, it's unreasonable to think that someone can pay for a full back in all cash.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It's one thing if you have a millionaire client or a client that makes $300 or $500 a year. Sure, like that's easy enough. But most of our clients are making under $100 probably.
Yeah, probably.
And they're making a huge sacrifice to get these like large tattoos.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what keeps it special. But at the same time, if you stick to cash only, and also too, part of what helps you save money is owning your own house, because of either whether or not whether you have a lower mortgage payment than you would be paying rent, and then maybe you sell it in a couple years and come up on $40,000 easy. You know, those are like easy ways to save. So if you're not claiming a certain enough, then you're not being taxed as hard, but then you can't get a loan unless your wife or your husband has a job that makes enough money to prove for the both of you.
That's exactly right. We're trying to show that we're not making any money at all, and then losing despite of it because you're throwing money out of the window on rent instead of building equity in something. And that's not health insurance specific, but it's part of the overall kind of umbrella of issue of responsibility as our industry grows and what our responsibilities should be to ourselves and to our families as it continues to grow.
I mean, when my wife is a stay-at-home wife, and she does a lot of volunteer work, and we have way too many animals at our house, so she kind of has to stay at home. But so it's just me. So as soon as I could get a life insurance policy on myself, I got it. As soon as I was able to afford it, because she has a degree. She has she has 2 bachelors and 2 minors. So it's not like she can't work, but it's just with the way that our relationship worked out, that it's better for her to stay home. And it keeps me less stressed because I don't have to worry about any of that shit. But as soon as I was able to get life insurance, I got it, mainly because I kept seeing all these GoFundMes for people's funerals, and from the level of income that we're used to, she's not going to be able to get that right off the bat. It'll take her a few years to get back. So, and you know what, life insurance, I'll tell everybody this, man. I think life insurance is probably, because it's not that expensive.
No,
It really isn't. Like,
Yeah.
you can get a really good policy for like $80 a month. It's not that bad.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, health insurance is something like, at least if you want decent insurance, you're probably paying $800 to $1,000 for like a decent plan, not even the best plan, just a decent plan.
Yeah, and that may be or it is a lot for anyone. But what I find is that if you learn to prioritize those things in your life, you find there are a lot of other things that can go away. I remember as a kid, my grandfather was an insurance agent, and I remember as a kid not having health. Was it health insurance? Maybe it was I bought a car, a used car, and I hadn't bought auto insurance for it yet. And I said something about not being able to afford it, and he was like, "Jake, you choose not to afford it." He's like, "You afford all kinds of things. You're choosing not to afford that." And so, right, $800 a month is crazy, but life insurance, at the very least, everyone should have, and it's not at all expensive.
Right.
What I worry about is that, and I'm not saying anything bad at all about GoFundMe or anyone that's using it. I mean, I donate to them. I see tattooers, I donate to them all the time. I worry that people start to depend on that as their plan.
For sure. I mean, they just don't have a plan, and then they're always, at the last minute, they're like, shit, like, I maxed out all my credit cards, like, I've got nothing, like, my family's tapped out, what do I do, like, and I get it. And, like, again, like I said, like, I think the majority, I guess I'm making a gross assumption here, but to me, even though I do well these days and I'm busy all the time, and, money is not really something that, I fret about anymore. I did, like, pretty recent, like just a couple of years ago, it was like a bigger deal to me. And, I don't think a lot of us really care, and we're just like, okay, cool. But, most of us are still relatively young, and one of the biggest things that sunk in for me was, meeting tattooers who are in their late 40s and who can't tattoo as well as they could before. And it doesn't matter how much time they spend in the shop, they're not making as much money as me because they either physically can't do it or mentally can't do it. Even at one time, they could have been way better than I was. They're having such problems. And the last thing I want to do is be a 50-year-old man, like, trying to scrape a living off of, like, Kelsey's bangers, that looks horrible to me, like, at that point I don't need to be rich, but I just want to feel like I can pay all my bills and be okay without having to kill myself,
I think people don't see that coming up on them much either. I'm 43, almost 43 this in a couple of months, and so I've been tattooing since I was 20, so I'm in my 23rd year. If you had asked me 2 years ago how much longer I could tattoo, I would have said another 23 years. Suddenly, like, I've got a spot on the right side of my back that I just can't. More than 2 hours of sitting, I have to get up and go stretch and get in like a cobra pose or whatever. And my right eye flutters all the time. That came out of nowhere. It happened one day and it hasn't stopped. And so, like, you never know when that point is. Now I have no idea when that point is. But I know at some point, and I'm only tattooing 3 days a week. I try to tattoo 3 days a week. I always end up having to push someone in. So 3 to 4 days a week. And I'm looking at ways to drop to 2 days a week,
I'm still at 5. But, like, I think next year, I think I'm going to push to 4. And then, I would say probably every other week. I just want the ability to be like, hey, if I don't want to tattoo on that 5th day, I won't. But if I need the money, then I can at least get somebody in, because, that's actually kind of nice to have a lighter schedule, because then, if you have a project you're really stoked on, you can get it in right away as opposed to waiting however many months, And the longer your wait list is, the more time it is for something to go wrong in that client's life where they need that disposable income. So I'm doing the same thing just for my own health. If I could go down to 3 days, that would be amazing. But I don't have my structure enough. Like, I don't own my own shop or anything, so it's all just on me. So but yeah, I feel that. I have a friend who's just 4 years older than me, and his fingers are doing his fingers are doing this by
yeah.
themselves, and he's one of them, super stubborn, like, he bought a house before he bought health insurance. You know what I mean? So, like, it's not like he's, like, completely just, like, living the pirate life. So he's doing stuff. But I keep telling him, I'm like, dude, you need to go ahead and have surgery for that now. And, because, like, he's working on carpal tunnel. And, like, if you don't do it, like, it's like a cavity. If you put off a cavity, you're going to end up needing a root canal.
Right.
Like, it's a difference between $250 to get that cavity filled, and an hour's worth of inconvenience and pain versus, like, $2,000 for crown and root canal, and, like, a week of sensitivity.
Yeah.
So I keep trying to push him to, like, go ahead and take care of his shit because, he's a little younger now. If he waits another 5 years, like, he'll probably be way worse.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that the more that the industry grows, the more that the clientele grows, which that doesn't seem to be slowing at all. The longer,
it really the bubble's got to even out at some point, but it really hasn't stopped yet.
Yeah, yeah. I haven't seen anything slow. That nothing tells me that anyone's tapping the brakes on this tattoo
not yet.
Phenomenon.
Not yet.
But what I was gonna say is that we continue to push ourselves and work longer and longer hours, and whenever you're in your 20s, you can get away with that. But what's happening is your body is just slowly breaking down. It's no different than the person sitting in the cubicle. In fact, it's way worse. Probably you're hunched over even worse than the person in the cubicle.
Yeah, for sure.
And the next thing you know, you're in trouble, and your wife is starting a GoFundMe page because you're in the hospital. And I do think I'm glad you brought this subject up, because I do think that as a whole we should be talking a lot more about that. It's funny. I wasn't thinking about it as a lifestyle thing, as a pirate lifestyle. I was thinking of it as just like a lack of responsibility, or just the tattooers are kind of flighty and flaky anyways. I just thought of it as
grown-up kids,
just big kids. And I always just kind of thought of it that way. But yeah, maybe it is a little bit of that, like, trying not to have a regular job.
Right.
And regular jobs have insurance. So that's one thing I don't need to put. That's one thing I can dodge.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, we had discussed about, why the regular jobs offer the insurance is because of the group rates. Yeah. And in Georgia, I mean, I'm sure it's different in every state, but actually one of my clients is a insurance broker. And he's helped me out through all this, because doing all that paperwork is a pain in the dick.
Yeah.
But he helped me out through all this, and he keeps trying to tell me, like, dude, if you guys get a group of 5 or more people, if you get a whole shop, then all of you can pay less. But here's the biggest issue is that, like, just like we were saying, that we're flighty. So, like, do you really want to put, like, your medical future in the hands of Joe Blow, who comes in hungover every day?
Right.
And he's missing his payments, on his shit. And then you guys all get kicked out of the next year, and then you're stuck paying the shit again. And, but not even just that. I don't know. I guess I lost my train of thought there.
Well, that is great. If you have a group that's been together that you trust,
right.
That's one thing. But that's definitely something to keep in mind, is that either someone doesn't pay their share, or someone is way sicker than everyone else and causes everyone else's rates to jump.
Yep. Because 5 people still ain't a lot.
No.
Like, you're not going to get the biggest break in the world, but it is a way to, cut the costs down a little bit. I don't know if, like, I know back in the day, they used to send out, like, I don't know if I'm having just a bad memory of this or not, but I wasn't there at one time you could get, like, wasn't there, like, a National Tattooers Association or something like that? Remember, like, you could apply for it, and they'd give you a membership, and it was just this little, like, certificate or something like that?
I'm trying to think of the name of it.
So it was more or less, like, kind of like a union almost, right? And I feel like that would be the only way for us to, like, across the board, like, unless you had a super shop or you own multiple shops where you had 20, 25 tattooers working for you. But I wonder if, like, if state to state, if, like, you could just make, like, let's say I live in Georgia, like, like the union's purpose is solely just to get health insurance for everybody, and everybody groups up that way. That way, if there's 100 people on there, then, like, losing the 10 people out of the year isn't going to fuck anything up too bad, and you can still, like, it'll be worth it for the insurance companies to work with you on the flux, and
Yeah. Yeah. That I was going to make a point to that. Another great responsibility of a group like that, or a great whatever, a great thing about a group like that would be the ability to help out with, like, with taxes, with insurance, with helping folks do their, like, tattooers actually pay, pay tax and collect money. We've got, my wife and I have a lot of just like rental houses in Memphis, and our CPA, he specializes in that. That's all he does, is like people who are like landlords.
Right.
Everyone that he does taxes for is in that industry, and he knows it backwards and forwards. And if there's some small change in tax law, he knows it. He knows exactly how to handle it.
Right.
And that would be a great thing if you were dealing with tons of tattooers to understand then you could justify having a CPA firm that actually dealt with that if they were doing it for hundreds or thousands of tattooers, and really stay on top of what the tax law is as it applies to us. Because I don't really, I just like try to write off everything that I can every trip that I'm on, but I'm sure there's a lot that I don't know about tax law when it comes to to our line of work.
I changed over to because my guy, the majority of his clients are independent contractors. Mm-hmm. So for my situation, he recommended that I switched over to an SCorp.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know if, like, because I didn't know about this until 2 years ago because he told me, but I had heard about LLC and, like, incorporating yourself and stuff like that, and then that way if anybody sues you, they can't, like, just take your savings from you or whatever, which was great. But I guess an S-corp, they set you up as a small company, corporation, or whatever, and basically what happens is that you, like, let's just take a round number. Let's say you make $100,000 a year, right? You can what you do is you designate, like, a reasonable income for yourself, $60,000, right? And then that's what shows up as what your income is. So, like, if you're trying to get a house, they see $60,000 a year, which is not great, but it's also not terrible.
Yeah.
Like, you can still buy a house probably at $60,000, and then that extra $40,000, they don't take any Social Security or some other tax out of it. You still pay taxes on some of it,
right,
but you save, like, half on that $40,000.
Yeah.
So it ends up going, like, a tax bill for something like that would be roughly probably, I don't know, 15 to 20,000 usually, and if you're S corp, it drops it down to probably like 10 to 12 or something like that.
The way that I always heard that explained, and we have an LLC on the real estate side, and the way I've heard it explained is that any of those, C corp, S corp, LLC, they spend money and pay taxes on what's left, basically, and an individual pays taxes and spends what's left. So they pay taxes on their total income. If you're just filing as an individual or a married couple, you pay taxes based on the number that's on your incomes, on your W-2 or your 1099 or whatever at the end of the year. Whereas in our LLC, we basically get to buy everything, bring in all the revenue, buy everything that we have to buy. Like you're saying, pay ourselves a reasonable owner draw, and then whatever is left is what we end up showing as our income that we pay taxes on.
Right.
And so it's just easier to.
Well, and that's the thing, is that none of this shit is sexy at all.
No.
Like, all this shit sucks.
Yeah, how many people have already turned this episode off?
Right. I mean, but that's the thing. It's like, like, as tattoo artists, we're really good about obsessing and finding out all this information. But then when it comes to the stuff that is necessary to find out, that we should be more knowledgeable about, we immediately turn it off and we have no interest.
Yeah.
And that's myself included. But, luckily my wife is a lot better. She has, like, small OCD, so she loves, like, like little, like, 1 + 1 = 2 tasks.
Yeah. So,
like, she's more than capable of doing it. But, like, thank God she came into my life and just, like, it sucks losing that amount of money every year, but at the same time, like, yeah, dude, if I end up in the hospital stay, I don't have to ask my friends for money.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure if it's like something outrageous, but yeah, like I probably still would. But, at least for like, if I break an arm or, if I'm out for 6 weeks, like it's not the end of the world, like I'll be able to, I don't have to ask anybody for, and it's not a handout, it's help, but, like who wants to do that? I think all of us want to keep our independence,
Yeah. Yeah.
We don't want to be a burden on anybody.
No one wants to do that, but I am concerned that the people see it as, the way out if something were to happen to them. That would be the first thing, like, oh, we better go make a GoFundMe page.
Right.
Yeah, I would just thinking back about what we're saying here. A couple of those things work really well together. We were talking about so many tattooers only accepting cash, but in order to not pay taxes. But you could accept credit cards, probably get better tips, probably increase your rate. And then put money into a health savings account to avoid paying those taxes, or to health insurance to avoid paying those taxes.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I definitely have to say, anybody. I think it's a little different when you're doing hand size stuff all day. Like ask for cash, but I'll definitely say that the fact that credit cards exist and people are putting their shit on credit, and they're definitely way more apt. Like I would say in general, either, a lot of times what I'll get is people will pay for the tattoo on the card, and then they'll give me cash as a tip.
Yeah. I see that.
And that saves a lot, because it generally, when someone's paying all cash, like, unless they have a lot of money or they're just like a drug dealer or something, or a stripper or something, they're not generally just like peeling big tips, Yeah.
Yeah, I noticed a spike whenever I went to, well, I never only accepted cash. I'll tell you what, I noticed a spike in tips when I went from, I use Square to swipe cards, and I added the tip option, and then I got nervous because I was using it on my phone, and I didn't like handing it to them having to choose a tip while I'm standing there.
Right.
So I spent $200 on one of the Square like stands that holds an iPad or whatever.
Right.
And so they just like do it all on their own. That Square stand paid for itself within like 3 days.
Yeah.
And how much my tips increased.
Well, it also, it makes them feel like you're actually professional,
right.
Because, handing somebody your card and just swiping it through your phone, that looks better than like punching it in, but at the same time, it's still like, all right, we're at a flea market here, even though I just paid more for this than I do for most things in my life,
right.
And I'm still like doing it like a bazaar, which again, is more than fine. I think everybody has their cash saves, but you gotta play in the system if you want to play. Like it's just what it is.
Right. Well, I hope that people will. First off, I hope they went through this whole episode and that I can find a clever enough way to title it that'll make people watch, because it's definitely one of the more important things that we probably ever have discussed on the show. It's we talk a lot about drawing and and troubleshooting technique, and we talk about all the cool tools and things that we play with all the time. But it's this is so much bigger of a deal. But like you said, it's just not sexy. But man, it's super important.
Yeah.
Especially you can't open Instagram without somebody like asking for money for something that was unexpected.
Yeah, I would just tell people like it's not something like if you don't have health insurance right now, and I get it, like I didn't have it for years doing this, or you don't have life insurance or whatever the case, at this point, there's no reason to freak out because you've been doing it for years, but it's only going to be beneficial to you if you actually search for answers and try to figure out how to do this in a way that's not going to fuck you over,
right.
It's just one of those things. It's like brushing your teeth. Like me particularly, it's, or flossing, I guess, is a better example. Like, you really should take the time to floss,
right.
Even though most of us don't,
Yeah.
It's just one of those things that you should be doing, and most people overlook it. And just like in any other, in the other parts of our careers, we keep making the same mistakes over and over and over again, except these mistakes will have a much bigger impact than you, putting blue where it wasn't supposed to, or putting a piece of filigree where it wasn't supposed to, or, keep trying the same trick over and over that's not landing, that's only going to affect a little bit of your life, versus like this type of stuff.
Could end your career.
Yeah, it could end your career, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, man, thanks. I appreciate you taking the time to talk about it.
Yeah, man, of course.
And I appreciate you bringing it up. I think it was a great subject, and I hope that we can do more of these, these types of things where, like I say, that dig a little bit deeper and maybe get some, like, audience engagement. That would be great.
Yeah.
Our folks are awesome about leaving comments and getting engaged in conversations, so I hope they will in this one. I hope we can start a dialogue. So we didn't talk anything about Oscar's work, but if you don't know Oscar's work, I'll link to some of his older episodes in here. Oscar's at Oscar Zornosa on Instagram, and then OscarZornosa.com.
It's OscarZTattoo.com, because pretty much when people see a Z in a name, all rules of phonics goes out the window.
Right.
And it's phonetically exactly how you're supposed to say it, but I've literally gotten people looking at my name and say, "Hey, Oscar Tornado," and which I guess should have been my Instagram name, I guess.
Yeah, maybe.
But no, I'm a classic guy. But yeah, it's Oscar Zornosa and OscarZTattoo.com.
Awesome. He's out of Atlanta, and he's here every year at Space City. So
of course,
with us, so you can always come visit us both next year. So thanks, dude. I
All right,
appreciate
man.
it. Always great to see you. Thank you, guys. As always, we'll see you next time.